Next up, with 4 Olympic gold medals and dozens more world championship ones, Simone Biles is the most decorated gymnast in the world. But all that hardware can pack on the pressure. And just ahead of the team finals at the Tokyo Games last night, it became too much. Biles decided to pull out and forego the opportunity to top the podium. She's physically in good shape, but she told reporters she needed to step aside for the sake of her mental health, saying, quote, "We also have to focus on ourselves because at the end of the day, we're human too. So we have to protect our mind and our body rather than just go out there and do what the world wants us to." Well, her team ultimately won silver behind Russia, and Biles' coach says she's taking it one day at a time when it comes to the upcoming individual gymnastics competitions. But her decision to prioritize her mental well-being is fueling a conversation about the pressures on young female athletes in particular. It's one fellow Olympian and tennis star Naomi Osaka sparked when she withdrew from the French Open over mandatory press conferences, which she said on Twitter gave her, quote, "huge waves of anxiety," end quote. I'm joined now by BU journalism lecturer and sports journalist Shira Springer, who teaches a course on sports, gender, and justice. Welcome, Shira. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
So what was your reaction when you heard that Simone Biles was pulling out of the competition?
So I was one of those people who woke up early this morning to tune in to the team competition, and I was incredibly surprised, though there was that difficult vault that she had. Very unusual for her not to have a perfect vault. And you began to start thinking, okay, things might be a little bit off. Something is not quite right. So first, surprise at her withdrawing, that this vault had sort of led to her saying, I'm not ready to compete today. And then I think there was a second round of surprise when she came out, and it wasn't a physical ailment, but it was because of her mental health. And just how much bravery that took to come out and say, I was not in the right headspace, and you simply cannot compete when you're not mentally where you need to be. And the recognition that the Olympics are both about physical prowess, but also about mentally being not tough enough, but being in the right space to do what you need to do. And she said it herself, if you're not, you risk physical injury. And as we've seen in the past with gymnastics, that injury can be quite severe when you're doing tricks as difficult and as risky as Simone Biles is doing.
Yeah, I know, Shira. The vaults that she had planned were so dangerous in the best of circumstances, and without being able to have the concentration you need to do it, it could have ended in a catastrophe. I know there's pushback, obviously, all over the place, not just on social media, people saying, well, you were part of a team, you should have done something for your team. Do you think that her doing something for her team was by not competing so she wouldn't hurt their chances to medal?
Yes, absolutely. I think there are obviously two ways of looking at this, which is, there are going to be those naysayers who said that she quit on her team. She is the best gymnast in the world. They need her to score well. But her perspective, and I quite frankly will take her perspective over naysayers and haters, is that I was doing my team more harm than good by going out there, that she would have become a distraction, that her mental state was simply not going to be, let's say, value added for her team on the day. And it happens. And she talked about in her press conference how she was just out of sorts. She was shaky. She couldn't take the usual pre-competition nap that she usually does. She just was suffering from an incredible amount of anxiety. And she had said prior to today that the weight of the world was on her shoulders and that the pressure really got to her. And I think if you're in that headspace, you're not doing your team any good. And let's be fair too, she gave her team a pep talk after she decided to withdraw. And she said, listen, you can do this. And there's something to be said for that and that type of leadership as well.
Well, she's always been very direct and open and honest about what's going on with her. I want to take a look at a clip from her when she was on Dancing with the Stars and reacted to one of the judges' comments.
I was waiting for you to smile at some of the compliments. You didn't.
Smiling doesn't win you gold medals.
Smiling doesn't win you gold medals. So I think she pretty much says it all right there. Shira, are we seeing some progress here? I mean, I was struck, Michael Phelps had this HBO special that he worked on talking to other Olympians about the challenges of their mental health struggles, especially when the games are over or when their athletic career is over. And some of them haven't gone to college and some of them don't have anything that they can look forward to work. They've gone from this high to suddenly having nothing that's really working for them. Are we beginning as a society to understand that it's not just all being on the cereal boxes and winning the medals and getting the great promos as we're covering it, but then they're actually real people with the same real struggles that we have?
Yeah, I think absolutely. And part of that is social media. Simone Biles went to social media, to Instagram, to post about her mental health. Naomi Osaka has done the same. So part of that is we now have a more direct connection to professional athletes. They are able to perhaps be more open through social media channels. So that's one aspect of it. I also think that athletes are becoming more comfortable with being vulnerable and open. And again, that may be in part due to social media. You also have the rise in all of these docu-series of, about superstars. Simone Biles had her own special where you sort of went behind the scenes and got behind the scenes access to her life and her training routine. So I think that's another part of it, that there is greater openness and greater comfort on the part of the athletes about being vulnerable and coming across as a three-dimensional human being, which wasn't the case perhaps 5-10 years ago, where there was this expectation of perfection on and off the mat, so to speak.
All right. Do you think they're also understanding that we don't own their bodies, that their bodies are their bodies, and when they're done playing, regardless of what level they're at, whatever injuries they incur or damage they do is going to be with them for the rest of their lives? I mean, you just need to look at the NFL players who have died homeless or had terrible addiction due to their concussions that weren't treated. I was thinking of Carrie Strug and her ankle sprain, I think in 1996 at the Olympics, where she competed in pain. And I remember watching thinking, don't do that. Like, you're going to want to walk on that ankle when you're 50. And, none of this fame is going to get you from the car to the house. Are they beginning to understand that we don't own them?
I think that's one thing they're beginning to understand. I also think they're beginning to understand that the sponsors and the media don't have their best interest in mind necessarily. They're interested in the story. They're interested in the publicity they can get from being associated with these great athletes. And oftentimes that means leading them or forcing them to do things that they might not ordinarily do, putting an extra amount of pressure on them. So I think they're beginning to understand or see more clearly that sponsors, media, and others don't really necessarily care about their long-term quality of life, and they care about what's happening in the moment and, quite frankly, how to profit off of that.
Yeah, and we'd be remiss if we didn't note, social media and the attacks that Simone Biles has taken as being a black woman since she emerged on the stage have certainly, I can't imagine, not taken a toll. Another thing that's been changing is the outfits that women have been required to wear in competition, which I've never really understood why the leotard was required in places where men wore shorts, or why the skirt was needed. The Norwegian handball women's team, handball's not an Olympic sport yet, but they were competing and decided to not wear what they were required to. There's a picture of them wearing the shorts, and they were fined. The team was fined $1,768. The pop star Pink came out and said that she would pay their fines. What's going on with why are women forced to wear these things, and why hasn't it changed already?
Now, I'm going to say, come on, Sue, do you really have to ask that question?
Yes, because I'm getting paid to ask that question. Yes, I know the answer, but what's...
I know. And that's what I want to say. Like, we all know the answer, and that's my point. You and I both know why women are being asked to wear bikini shorts and bra-like tops. Like, there is a reason why, and it's objectification. They want to create a certain amount of sex appeal. There are sports leaders who have commented on record that female athletes should wear sexier outfits to grow the audience for their sport. So you and I and others both know exactly why. I think the question is, why does this keep happening, and why hasn't this changed? I mean, I was writing about the issues regarding what women wear in competition in the Olympics a decade ago. And, this seems to have a cyclical nature to it, in the sense that it always comes up during the Summer Olympics. And yet nothing changes from Summer Olympics to Summer Olympics. And you could also make the argument that there are some sports in the Winter Olympics, I think of figure skating, that have the same issue. So that's, I think, the frustrating part of it is, why is this still an issue? And I actually see a through line between, what's happening now, because it wasn't just the Norwegian beach handball team, but the German gymnasts actually successfully protested, so to speak, with their clothing and wore full-length leotards in competition, as opposed to the skimpier leotards you commonly see. And I think there is a movement among female athletes to compete on their own terms. And I think that's true in many ways of what you're seeing from Osaka and Simone Biles. And it's also true of these teams and these female athletes who are saying, we're not going to dress this way. You can't tell us what is most comfortable, what makes us feel most confident when we compete.
Do you
We decide that.
Do you see a connection between the mental health challenges that female athletes face and the the objectification of them and the sexualization of them in an athletic endeavor?
Absolutely, because the pressure is for perfection. And there is this belief, I think, that women have to be perfect in more ways than male athletes. They have to look perfect, they have to act perfect, and they have to perform on the floor, the balance beam, the vault, the tennis court perfectly to keep their star status or to attain star status. And I think there is more pressure in terms of who women are as athletes overall, that it's all encompassing, whereas male athletes can take a break. There isn't that same pressure on their appearance or behavior that female athletes face.
Yeah, female athletes are criticized if they take their shirts off, their tops off when they score a soccer goal on the field, and criticized if they wear shorts instead of a leotard. It's an interesting conundrum for sports for women to be in, no?
Yeah, you can't win. You can't win either way. I mean, it's either too much or too little. It's never right. And I think female athletes feel that pressure immensely. And as we've seen, the perfect, to be perfect, to achieve some sort of ideal that is really out of reach, creates a lot of anxiety among female athletes. Not that it doesn't among male athletes, but we're seeing it be more prevalent among female athletes.
All right, Shira Springer, thank you as usual for your expertise, and I appreciate seeing you, and we'll talk again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.